Why you up here, Billy? Come on. As he comes up, y'all. I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but Billy is a very humble guy, and you probably don't know this unless you heard him tell this story the other day for the first time, but he was in a rock band that hit it pretty big. They were semi-famous, maybe even famous, depending on what part of the country you're in.
Right.
And he's got a very unique and amazing story to tell, and the thing about it is his story, although it's unique to him, is not anything unique for what God wants to do in every life, right? So, without further ado, let him have it, Billy.
All right, first of all, I am a little bit nervous because this story it's amazing. First thing I have to say is I can't ever deny God. I will believe in God no matter what the scientists say, no matter what the professors say, anybody tells me. I don't care what proof they show me that he doesn't exist. I could never believe it because this testimony is about 3 times that God proved to me that he is real and he loves you. And probably wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for a couple of these things. I'm going to try to keep it short. No, last time it took an hour to do, so I'm going to try to get through it pretty quick. First of all, I grew up very poor family. I mean, we were so poor. Some suppers that we had were tomato sandwiches, you know. The reason was because my dad was an alcoholic. And so he liked to spend every bit of money that he made on himself, getting drunk. And so it caused some pretty bad problems between him and my mother. So they would fight a lot. And that was the first instance that I had with God. I was a very naive kid. I believed everybody loved each other. You know, everybody was here to help each other. We were all one big family. You know, I always felt that. It's not because we had church in our family. We didn't. We didn't have a Bible hanging around. Nobody told me about God. It's just, it was there already. You know, I knew there was somebody that created everything, and I knew that he loved us or he wouldn't have done it. You know, so, but anyway, they would fight a lot, and it really, I guess you could say, tortured me. You know, they say traumatized, but it's worse than traumatizing. When you see 2 people that you love so much rip each other apart in the way that they did. You know, it wasn't a physical thing. It was just, you know, vocal, abusive. You know, they would just try to tear each other down. And as a kid, when you're that small, you don't understand, you know. Like I said, I thought everybody loved each other. That's not what you do when you love each other. You know, you don't tear each other down like that. And so I had some bad trouble with it. But it would ease because I would see a light in the room and I could feel warmth, you know. I guess you could say I had my own invisible friend, you know. He wasn't imaginary, because he was there. And he would let me know he was there. He would comfort me. And as weird as this sounds, he would actually, we would sing together. And it was amazing. You know, I wish I could remember some of those songs today. I was so small, but it brought me peace, and I could deal with what my parents were going through. And I knew it was God. I mean, he has so much love that you can't mistake it, you know. And so that got me through my youth. And as I got older, though, you know, I sort of understood why they were fighting. I knew what he was doing. And it sort of, you know, I got used to it. And so that would go away, you know. He sort of, not that he disappeared in my life, but I wouldn't feel him. I wouldn't think about it, you know. I would think about God just because I knew he was there. I wanted to go to church, you know. Like I said, my parents didn't go to church or anything. So, you know, I started going on my own and stuff. But I eventually started to forget what that was like, having him there in the room with me, around me, you know. And so, anyway, my childhood went on, and it was pretty good. Even though we were poor, my mother was a strong, strong woman. I remember her walking to work, and she, it's 16 miles, whether it was snowing, raining. I know you've heard that about your grandparents. I watched my mother do it just to keep us alive. I got 2 brothers, and she made sure we were fed. We didn't know we were poor, really, until, I got older and started hanging out with kids whose parents had money, and I was like, wow, I thought Tang was the greatest, thing ever. We Kool-Aid's all we had. I mean, but it was fine. There wasn't anything wrong with that. My mother loved us, but she was a hard woman. But anyway, as I forgot, when I got around 12 years old, and I met some of the people in my father's side of the family. They didn't have much to do with him. So I didn't understand, it was, I think I was introduced to them because my great-grandfather died, and we went to funeral and stuff. But anyway, I sort of knew who they were. They had a lot of money. So, they didn't have anything to do with my dad, and I didn't understand that, and that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, he's an atheist, and so it was kind of ironic that when I met them, I found out they weren't atheists at all. As a matter of fact, they were Freemasons. And people get the wrong idea about Masonry. They say, well, first of all, 99% of the Masons are just regular people worshiping God. They don't even know what the other 1% is doing. I'm sure you've probably heard some of that before. But it's true. Most of them are great people. They're Shriners. They raise a lot of money for the youth. They do a lot of great things. And like I said, they worship God just like we do. But there is the 1%. But people are wrong about that too. That 1%, a lot of out there in the conspiracy world, is that they're Luciferians or devil worshipers. Well, that's only half true. See, because at the top, they have an argument. And the argument is, who is God? Is it the creator of all things, or is it the first one that he created? In the Bible, it does say that there's a light bearer. Lucifer is called the light bearer. So it gets confusing for them. Now, at the very top, long time ago, there was 2 families, and, they got information from the Templars and stuff. I'm just going to give you a short thing on that. Because the main thing about this is that they have an argument on who is God. And that's why the checkered board they have, black and white, they want to bring an answer. As a matter of fact, an insight on that is that when Jesus was hung on the cross, the people in power then wanted him, even the ones that believed in God, they wanted him hung on that cross because they wanted God to come. They wanted him to show himself so that they would know, so they would get their answer. They're actively doing that today. World wars, all the strife that happens, they want God to come, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that he comes. They want to know. Now, the deal is that they have is that whichever side is right will advocate for the other one. Just say they didn't know. They've been actively searching all the things that they do. Now, again, 99% of Masons don't even know this. But there is the 1%, and they do have meetings and ceremonies, initiations. So when I met this family, I thought, well, once I found this out, I figured they were on the side of the Creator. I mean, they were very rich people in Surrey County. They owned most of the county at one time. Now, these people that I'm fixing to talk about are no longer with us, but their family members are. Now, whether they do this still or not, I don't know. But this family was full of lawyers, preachers, and sheriffs. They pretty much run the place over there at one time. So when I met them, even though they didn't have anything to do with my father, they wanted me to be part of their family. And so they wanted me to be a Mason. And the first thing I heard about was God. Oh, I'm all in that, you know. I'm all for God. So they started initiating me. Now, they did it in a very short period of time. And I can tell you that these people do go down in basements. And they do hold their ceremonies in the darkness, in different places, with the robes and the candlelight and all that. That's true. Now, they'll hide that, but it's true. And those people all over the country and the world are the ones that usually get the power, because they're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And they have an agenda. Like I said, they want to know who God is. So during the initiations, at first, it was, all about God, Now, as far as you go in initiations is how much you want to learn. Well, that suited me really good, because I want to know about God, I didn't have it in my family again. And when I went to churches, as you well know, and I hate to say this and hurt some people's feelings, but a lot of churches aren't really about God. A lot of churches are about a power structure, an entertainment show, how much money they can make and be successful. And they call that giving to God. Well, me and my family have had experiences with that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But anyway, so they initiated me very quickly. And it got to a point to where I was being told that I was getting ready to be initiated and to be a 33-degree Mason. Now, I was only 12 years old, and we had done this in a matter of 6 months of going up there and visit them. They would come pick me up, and they would take me down, and we'd do these ceremonies, and again, it was nothing to it at first. But as the deeper that we went, I realized that side of the family wasn't worshiping the God that I knew when I was a kid of all loving. Now, he was what they called the light bearer, but they had that argument on the other side. They didn't believe the Creator was God. And so when we went to do the 33-degree Mason initiation, they took me down in the basement, and they had on their robes, and it was kind of like a Christian ceremony you would see in the bigger churches, robes, got your candles burning, ancient chants that they're saying, But I started feeling very strange, very odd atmosphere in the room. And I can't really explain it. I don't know what happened, but I do know that I started to feel almost like I wasn't in my own body, really, like I was watching myself, like this was some kind of a dream. And as they started preaching more and it got more intense, they started asking me a question. I'm not really even sure what it was. All I know is that at that moment, in the middle of that ceremony, God came to me, and he told me to get out. He said, get out of here. But before he let me get out, again, it's like I'm not even there. And I sort of blacked out for a minute, but I could feel my body vibrating and saying something. Now, whatever it was when God was with me that he said to them, it's kind of like a running mantra of this whole story. They told me that I needed to leave. So it wasn't really a choice. I was going to get out. And they said to get out and don't come back. Now, the thing is, when you're a Mason, you're a Mason. They don't consider you not part of the group, but they didn't want me there. I still to this day would like to know what he said to them. But whatever it was, I seen the fear of God in their eyes. Now, it's not that they don't believe in the Creator. Again, it's an argument that they have. And I guess whatever he said told them who was in power. And they don't want anybody stepping on their power, even God. And so they told me to get out and never come back. But I was telling the men's group, it's not like I don't ever talk to them. I never see them. But a couple of times I've got in trouble in my life, they got me out of it. So I know that they watch what I do and they know what's going on. As a matter of fact, I used to do a little bit of partying because as that went away, I started, slipping like most people do. And anyway, I was with a friend of mine and we got caught with some contraband. And so we got charged with it and went to court. And it was amazing because this judge was a substitute judge that was there that day. And he was laying it on everybody. I mean, for the simplest things. He was charging the biggest fines, And he was making people pay for their crimes. But when they called my name, he said, Mr. Weatherman, he said, is your great uncle the sheriff of Surrey County? I said, yes, sir, I believe he is. And he said, well, I know him. And he said, as a matter of fact, I think you've learned your lesson. I think are you ever going to do it again? And I said, no, sir, I'll never. You say what it is that you need to say to get out of trouble sometimes. I will never do that again, Your Honor. I swear, I promise. And so he said, I didn't think you would, so you're dismissed. Now, that was quite amazing because that judge was a substitute judge, and it just so happens that he was assigned that morning to come and do that court thing. And knew my great uncle. So I know the kind of power they have. I know what they can do. And I know they took care of me that day. But also when I was 12 years old, after they told me to leave, God stayed with me for a little bit. And he gave me a crazy vision of how the universe is made and how it's structured. And it was an amazing thing. Everything was compounded into like balls of matter. Different dimensional realities and all that, but it was all balls of matter, just like they teach you in science. It breaks down right down to the atom. But there's more than just the atom, as they're starting to learn now in quantum theory. But what God showed me that was amazing, it was not proven at the time. Nobody had talked about it. Science hadn't even discovered it. I think now they call it the God particle, so I think that's pretty telling and ironic. Maybe that they're starting to see the truth themselves, but they'll deny it until right before they get ready to pass. So everybody comes to God then, most people anyway. But anyway, what he showed me was a particle. It was smaller than an atom that is, but is not, but yet is. One moment is positive, so it's in reality, it's real, it's there. But one moment it's negative, and it's not. It doesn't exist. And its whole state is both. Now, scientists are having a hard time explaining that, but God showed me exactly what that was. Possibility. What does God say? All things are possible with God. And he showed me that. I thought it was the most amazing thing. So I wrote a thesis on it in my science class. And, I got an F on that. The guy says, this is not possible. This is science class. We're going to stick to the laws of physics. Now, later on, he had to come and apologize to me for that, because as scientists are learning, quantum theory states that laws of physics break down at zero. Now, zero can mean one of two things. It can mean everything you don't know, or it could be nothing. And as scientists are proving, there is no such thing as nothing. And isn't that what they call God, really? Zero is nothing. It's the most perfect shape. That's what that particle's shaped like. It's what the universe is shaped like. It's what atoms are shaped like. Possibilities. It was amazing. It was the most eye-opening thing that could have ever been shown to me. So I decided I was going to prove to the world, God, how could I do that? Not a preacher. I couldn't do that for a living. That's a tough, tough road right there.
Amen, bro.
But anyway, so I could sing. My dad was a singer. I knew I could sing. So I decided I was going to be a singer. And what I would do is I would go into clubs and I would bring Christian words to them without them ever knowing. And so that's what I did. But I went into them clubs as a slipping person. Like I said, I'd done got into trouble before. I got into trouble a couple times, actually. They got me out of another time, but it was pretty much the same incident. As God is not with me and His presence is not around that I can feel. I know He's with me all the time. The Bible says so. But you lose His presence sometimes and you get caught up in life. And so as I brought these lyrics in, we started with probably, I think our first show, there were 10 people there. But it quickly went to 10, to 20, to 30, to 200. To 500, to where we played in High Point one night, and they had to call the police out there to close the city down. So many people trying to park, they couldn't get in. So in the middle of that, being a human that I am, I got a little cocky. I started to lose what I was doing. You know, I started singing for different reasons. You get a lot of things when you're a singer in that situation. You get more than just money. You get pretty much anything that you want. And at the time, I forgot what I wanted, to prove God. And so for at least 20 years, I lived the rock star lifestyle, drinking anything that I wanted to do. You know, any club I wanted to get in, strip clubs, yeah, we went to them. We did all that, and I got lost in it. It was great. My head was so big, I thought I was the biggest star. You know, I'm going to be the greatest rock star the world's ever seen, which is it's hilarious today to think that I was like that. But it was true. I got so caught up in it that one time I come off the road, and I was 100, maybe 110 pounds. I've never been under 170 pounds, even in school. 110 pounds, and I didn't even realize it. My mother pointed it out, of course. You're going to die, son. I'm not going to die. God's got me, you know. And she should know, because when I was 12, after I told her about everything that happened with that family, she sent me to a psychiatrist. She said, there's got to be something wrong with this child. So she sent me to a psychiatrist. Now, 3 days with that psychiatrist, and he told me the same thing that those Masons did. Get out of here. Never come back. And he wrote a letter to my mother telling her not to bring me back there. There was nothing wrong with me. And that maybe she should listen to what I was trying to say, even though they wasn't going to go there. Must be something to what I was saying, because I definitely wasn't crazy. So I'm hoping my mother, like I said, when I was younger, didn't have anything to do with the church. As a matter of fact, in my house, there were Buddhas, pyramids. stuff like that around, spiritual energy. But later on, she did get close to God. And as a matter of fact, she told my son that she'd always been a Christian, which, but never argued with her about that. We did have our arguments about religion, but not about that. But so, when I was standing in front of her at 110 pounds, she was very concerned that I'd lost my way, and she was right. But, as luck would have it, I didn't become the great rock star. I mean, we were close. We were very close. We rode in limousines, got what we wanted, made a lot of money. Of course, I blew all that money. So I thought I was going to be the greatest rock star of all time. I'll have millions. I don't have to worry about anything, But my mother kind of woke me up a little bit to the fact that I was losing my way. But I figured I'd get around to it. But as the music scene went, I got older. I watched a whole generation change. I watched people with Big John hair in the 80s turn into jumping teenagers that didn't even drink. So they were doing pills, but they didn't drink. And they jumped up and down all night. I thought it was the craziest thing ever. But I also knew it was time to get out of rock music because you're too old. That's the generation you're not going to reach. And what are you doing anyway? I had become to where I didn't even like people. I met so many people that were so different than when I started as a child thinking that people just loved each other. Oh, the world out there is totally different than that. There are people that love each other, but they get crushed. You see it every day. They get stomped on, pushed down, made to feel like they're just so small they make no difference at all. But the truth is, it's really the only thing that holds us together are those people. And so, being in the middle of that, feeling that way, I still wanted to get back to that. How do I get back to God? I'm so far away from God, I don't know what to do, I'd been with women, the women that I'd been with were, let's just say I got everything I wanted at the time. But what I wanted was not what I needed. And so I was used to having an easy time with women, but it wasn't love. It was just a lot of lust and power struggles, And so, for some reason, I decided that I would pray that I would meet somebody that would love me, Love me like my mother showed love, My father was not smart enough to take advantage of that. What if I could just get that opportunity, Maybe I could do something with it. It wasn't long after that I met Shannon. God listens. Now, I didn't know that I would fall in love with her. As a matter of fact, I told her we would never be married. That's not what I do, But Shannon was the first woman that ever told me no when it came to sex or anything else. Man, that threw me back, man. Wow. She told me no. Why? Am I losing my looks? I know I'm getting older, but what's going on, But no, Shannon had morality. She cared about herself, and she loved. And that gets me emotional. But anyway, Shannon saved me. Shannon showed me what it was like to be loved by a human. She loved me unconditionally, but she had rules. She had morality. No drugs. Now, drinking at first was okay until one New Year's Eve party, and I don't know, I think I had alcohol poisoning and tried to kill myself. And then she even said then, no more alcohol. You can't drink. Maybe a beer here or there. But you're the type of person that you can't do that. You can't, I have an addictive personality. Now, what I'd got away from is what I was really addicted to was God and God's love. Because He showed me when I was so small, it never left me. And so anyway, as you would imagine, me and Shannon struggled quite a bit. At first things were great, but when you get married and you start to think about having a kid, it starts getting difficult. You got to make money to do that. I was making pretty good money, but, things got bad, and let's just say, to cut it short, we were in a position where we were pretty much homeless. We didn't live on the street, but we lived in one of those cheap hotels that you pay for by the week, I told Shannon she needed to go live with her mother, but she wasn't having it. She stuck right by me. So anyway, it got so bad that one day I didn't know how I was going to feed them, And so I got on my knees and prayed to God that He would help me feed them. A couple days later, we went to the grocery store with $20 in our pocket. We got to feed each other for 2 weeks. How are we going to make $20 last for 2 weeks? But anyway, we went in there and we got what we could. We didn't want Josh to know, how bad things were. So we went in there and we got enough food to maybe keep us alive, but it wasn't, $20. You know how it is these days. $20 for 2 weeks is not a lot. But when we went through the line, we had, I think, $1.50 left or $2, something like that. And Josh said, you know what? I want a lottery ticket. And I thought that was hilarious, But hey, man, he loves scratching off lottery tickets. It ain't even about winning for him, just scratching them off, He loves it. Well, honey, might as well get him one. We only got a couple dollars left. Why not? What's $2 going to do? So we go in there and I let Josh pull the thing that comes out. We go out to the car and he scratches that thing off. $500 winner. That's God, man. That's what God does. So he goes in there and we go back and we get all the food we need, put a little bit back. He provided for us. We had never won anything up to that point, But anyway, so finally I get me a good job and we start working, our way out of the situation. And I know God's with me, He's helping me every step of the way. I wouldn't have had that opportunity, And we started building our money back up and we got into an apartment where we live today. Everything was going pretty good. And I got hurt on the job. And of course, the company I worked for was a pharmaceutical printing company, and they had $1 million lawyers. I knew those people, though. I knew how to deal with that situation. So I thought I had it, but God made sure I had it. So right after I got hurt, it wasn't very long afterwards, me and Josh went to a store to get a couple drinks. We still didn't have much money, but like I said, I didn't want him to know. So if he wanted something and it was within reason, I made sure we got it. So we went to the store to get us a couple drinks, and all of a sudden, coming from behind me, I could feel that presence again, like when I was younger and when I was 12 years old. I knew what it was. I knew who it was. But it was so powerful this time, I'm going to tell you people. I felt so much love. It was so surreal. I didn't know what to do, and I started bawling right there in the middle of the store. I couldn't control myself. He was so overpowering coming to me this time. that I was apologizing for every ant I stepped on, every bug I swiped at. I was worried God was going to judge me right then and there. His presence was full. And I didn't know what to do about it. And it was so surreal watching people go through the store not knowing or feeling it. You know, I read in the Bible, I had to understand that. And I read in the Bible one time where I think it was one of the prophets. And he was on the other side of this lake from a bunch of people, and he was fishing, and God came to him. And, you know, he started acting weird. So the people that were with him said, "What is wrong with you?" And he said, "Don't you see him? Don't you feel him?" But of course they couldn't, and I knew exactly how he felt. You know, in the Bible it also says every time angels come to you, you drop to your knees. Man, if God comes to you in that way, it is so hard, not in front of everybody. Just drop to your knees and start praying to him and apologizing and everything. But I had my son with me. I didn't want people to think I was crazy, so I tried to pull it together. And I said, "Josh, you got to pay for these drinks, man. I can't go up there and do it." I think he was, how old was you, Josh? About 8? He was about 8 years old. And he said, "I can't pay for this. You know, I don't know how to do it, Dad. I can't do it." And I said, "Well, son, we got to, we got to go." Like I just, so I put the drinks up and we left. And I couldn't figure out why God was with me except for maybe my hip in this company, This company told me they would never pay for my injury. As a matter of fact, they said that they would prove that I hurt myself on stage. So I was still singing, but I was singing with a band that did cover music. It wasn't like it was before, it was just for fun, really, But anyway, they fought me in this injury until it was a year, and God stayed with me that whole year. And it was, at first that kind of thing is great and remarkable. You don't understand it, You know you're not anything special. The Lord knows I'm not. I'm not any different than anybody else out there. So anyway, we beat that deal. Of course, I knew we would. Because I got hurt there. All I had to do was tell the truth, be honest about it. I got a cheap lawyer. They had their $1 million lawyers. God was with me. As a matter of fact, God was so with me that they tried to break me down so bad, human resources. You'll find out if you go into human resources that in most companies, they have a policy that if somebody gets hurt, your job is to break them down, to make them quit, to make them feel not worthy to get workman's comp from their company, or to have to pay for an injury. They have a step-by-step psychological program to do it. They'll call you in there and say you're belligerent. They'll call you in there and say you're the worst employee they ever had. You didn't get hurt here. Just quit. They did that to me over and over again. They would send me home and say, "You're not getting paid." But of course, the law states you have to get paid, so you just stick in there and you go back to work and, They tell you that you can't just sit down and not work. Now, my leg is so bad at this time. It's 10 months down the road. They're still fighting it. My leg is so bad that when they sent me for the 3rd evaluation for their doctor to look at it, he called them and told them if they didn't get me surgery soon, I was going to lose that leg. And so they finally conceded and gave me the operation. So I said, "Well, God, thank you, you kept me strong this whole time." He even told me to write this blog. Now, some of the craziest thing I wrote in that blog, but I just wrote what he told me. One of the first things that I knew that he was with me in it is sometimes he would tell me to write stuff and I would write it down and I wouldn't even know what I was writing until I went back later and read it. One of those things was that Pope Benedict would step down. God told me to write him. And he told me, "How can you sit in a house of gold while my children starve?" And he told me to write that he would step down because he was going to make sure of it. Well, a pope hadn't stepped down in 600 years. So I was really kind of nervous about writing that down. But it's God. You do what God tells you to do in that situation. Well, 2 weeks later, Pope Benedict stepped down, and not only did he step down, but 2 days before he stepped down, lightning struck the Vatican twice. That's pretty ironic since I wrote that down and my name was Weatherman. God has got a sense of humor. God told me a joke one time, and I wish I could tell it to you, but this was a personal joke between me and him. But when he started laughing with me and I laughed with him, this is how strong he was with me. I laughed with God. It's the most amazing experience I've ever had in my life. When he started laughing, I could feel his word and his vibrations and everything on the earth. In the leaves, in the trees, in the animals, us, everything. It was more remarkable than the vision he gave me of the universe. Just being there laughing with God. I laughed so hard, then I cried for an hour. It was so beautiful. But he was still there after all that stuff happened. I couldn't figure it out. Why is he still here? I mean, what am I supposed to do? I can't fulfill God's wishes. I mean, he can tell me to do anything. He needs a greater man to do what he wants. I've done proved through my music career, I'll just lose myself, you know. If I write everything that he tells me to write, that'll be great. But I'm not a preacher again. This is not going to work. I wrote that blog, and it started with 10,000 people that I took out of an atheist website because I challenged the atheists, and they kicked me out. Of course, it was 2 days of me writing, and they put everybody up against me they could. But I had God with me, see? So I would shoot them down every time until they finally kicked me out again and told me, don't come back to our website. You know? I thought that was amazing. So I started the blog with 10,000 readers, but it dwindled down to 4. Turns out those were 4 atheists. 2 of them turned their life to Christ. So God told me one time, and I asked him, why? Why did you create it? Look at us. We're a mess. Yeah. Why would you do that? And he said, if I could get just one, it would have been worth it. And he said, of course, I'm going to get more than one because y'all are greater than you think. You're stronger than you think. But I knew that I had to be weak because God was with me. You know, they say God, and God said it in the Bible. Jesus preached it, that he didn't come for the healthy. He came for the sick and the weak. And so, turns out from my surgery, they gave me some medication. So, I know Ryan, you know, took some medication and scared us all pretty bad. You know, if you're addicted to them medications, bad things can happen. And see, I was worried about Ryan because I know from my experience and all this that God takes the best ones. And so I was really worried. But I know, at least, thank God, you got things to do, apparently. So I'm glad you made it through that, man. You had us all scared to death. But so I know, you know, God sticks with you, and I couldn't figure it out. Well, turns out the medicines that they were giving me were NSAID medicines, and I'm allergic to them. And I'd been bleeding to death for the last 3 months, you know, after my surgery, and had no idea. I went to the doctor, went to the hospital time and time again, and they searched for infection. There was no infection. I was bleeding to death. And it finally took a regular doctor, a personal doctor, to figure it out. But me and Shannon had already knew, because one night I went to sleep and I woke up. I had a dream that night. And what it was God was showing me there was a hole in my stomach, and I was bleeding out through it. And if you could just convince the doctors, you know, I'm going to keep you alive until they figure it out. And so I told Shannon, I said, Shannon, you're going to have to watch it, because if it's as bad as he's telling me, I'm not going to be in shape to tell him. So one day, you know, life can be embarrassing. So some of the craziest things happen to you in the most embarrassing ways. But I was on the toilet one day, and I started feeling really strange, very, very strange. And all of a sudden I knew I was dying. And I barely got out to tell Shannon, you got to call 911. Something's wrong, I couldn't get off the toilet. Yeah. So when they came to get me that day, I was still on the toilet, We had to deal with that whole situation. But the worst part of it wasn't so embarrassing to me because I knew I was dying. And they took me to the hospital and run a bunch of tests and everything. And they made Shannon and Josh go out in the waiting room, so I didn't even have their presence there with me in the emergency room. And after a seemingly terribly long time of going through this, I coded out right there in the hospital. I watched the machine slowing down, that little beep, bleep, bleep. I watched it beep, bleep, and then I blacked out. When I come to, a nurse had me up, had shot a whole vial full of Dilaudid. They're supposed to put that stuff in real slow. But just so happens they had 2 defibrillators on that floor, and they were both being used with people having heart attacks. And so they didn't have a defibrillator available. They had one of them portable ones, but they had to run it in. So this nurse thought the best thing she could do was shoot that Dilaudid in my arm, and she saved my life and brought me back too. But I was leaning over like this, and she was telling me, "You're going to make it." And I said, "I'm going to make it? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess I am going to make it, because I'm going to tell y'all, I know this is running a little bit long, but I got to get to this part here. When I blacked out, I went into a white room. Was very warm. It's kind of like the same feeling that I had when I was a baby and God came to me. It was very bright, very clean, just unbelievably clean. And I sit there for a while and didn't see anybody or anything, but it was very blissful, perfect. Didn't know what to do, but it's all good. It's great. About that time, I could feel the presence and start to see that there was a presence in the room with me. And I knew who that was again. It was God there. And he opened, it was like a door, but not really. It's just a square like this opened up to where I could see heaven. And wow. It's heaven. I made it, After all that crazy stuff I did, I actually made it to heaven. Man, this is going to be great. And I started towards that, and I looked out. And I'm going to tell you people this. The trees there and everything in there is so vibrant. It's not like trees here. Things here die. Although it's beautiful and this world is beautiful, I will never look at it the same again after this. Because the trees there, you can feel the life in them. The water is perfectly clear. There's water, trees, grass, people. It's almost like here, only perfect. There's no cars or anything. You don't need cars. But so I'm starting to walk through that. I'm going to heaven. And man, he hit me right in the head, pushed me back. And that's when I woke up with that nurse saying, "You're going to make it." And I was like, oh no. Man, I was there, man, I was there. Then all of a sudden everything was really cold, The only thing I could remember was Josh and Shannon, So I knew what God came back to me for this time was to keep me alive. I do have a bit of a problem with that, though. Like I said, I'll never look at the world the same again. So I know what heaven's like. There is no death. There is no hunger. There's only peace and God, the presence of God, the most amazing thing. And so, like I said, I'm going to end this with this. I know a lot of you thought this was going to be about Josh, but that's just one of the miracles that's happened in our life. His whole life has been a miracle, really. Because when first they told us Shannon couldn't get pregnant, And we said, well, we're going to work on it. And we knew when she did before. I mean, that was the most amazing thing, too. That's how much we love each other. We knew she was pregnant before the doctors told us, because we knew that night that she got pregnant. We absolutely were sure. And then they confirmed it. But then they told us that all of her canals and everything else that leads to, the birth is too small. So there's a possibility that Josh won't make it. There's a possibility that she won't make it. Or there's a possibility that they both won't make it. We had to go through that whole thing of signing those papers, what to do, save him or her, But there he is. There he is. And so when it come down to the brain surgery thing, and I knew that's what y'all thought I was going to talk about today, but I knew it was going to be okay, one way or another. Even if they took him, it would be okay. But now he's sitting back there, healthy as can be, because of God. In my life, I've failed so many times at about everything I've done. I was a great singer. I almost made it, made all kinds of money, but I failed at what I set out to do. I failed to set out to teach people about God. And then when God came to me, see, I got nervous about telling you people this because I've told churches this before. And they told me the same thing that those atheists did. They told me to get out and never come back. We don't want you in our church. So I felt nervous about telling this church, but when they asked me, I had to do it. Because as many things as I failed at, I've had successes as well. And so when you're asked to speak about how God affects you in your life, what can you do but say it? My case might be remarkable. So if God has never come to you in that way, don't feel bad about it. I think he came to me because it was the only way I was going to make it. Again, God came for the sick and the weak. I'm fine with it. I'm just glad to be where I am. But I will tell you, prosper teachers tell you that when you have Christ in your life, everything is going to be perfect. You're going to have prosperity and health. Everything's going to be amazing. But they're lying to you. Because every time that God has come into our life, it's been great for us. But then we have struggled. Because the devil, see, this is his earth. God gave it to him for a short period of time. And he is actively out there devouring every soul that he can devour. And so the closer you get to God, just like Duncan told you, John, when you start working for God, you are going to struggle. It's going to get tough. But that's just an illusion, because at the core base of it, there's just God sitting there loving you. You can get through anything. I mean, the worst they can do is kill us, right? But you don't die if you believe in him. So again, I will never doubt God, and I hope after listening to my story that you can find enough truth in it that you will never deny him either. Because when things get really, really bad, he's there, and he loves you. And everything that happens on this earth is for a reason. It's all connected. It might be for 3 or 4 generations down the road. Something little that you do will greatly affect someone that you'll never meet. So just remember that. Never give up on God. And I thank you guys for letting me come up here and tell this. And hopefully you don't tell me to leave and never come back. But if you would, Duncan, I'd like you to come up and say a prayer for everybody. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time and listening to me.
Hey, this is Pastor Duncan Davis at Impact Church. Thank you for listening today. We hope and pray that today's message has impacted your life for Christ. We pray that you'll impact others' lives for Christ. Come and fellowship with us at Impact Church on Sunday mornings at 10:30. Have a great day, and God bless you.